Welcome to the Rugby Players Guide to France, made just for you by BrightRock. A series of top South African rugby exports who spent time playing the game in France look back at life on and off the rugby field and what it was like moving abroad to play the bounce in a new part of the world. Merci bien. So this is one of the simple delights of French gastronomy, the chocolate crepe lathered with indecent amounts of Nutella, freshly made, hot and delicious. Welcome to the Rugby Players Guide to France, a country that's full of rugby, it's full of history and it's full of great food, which makes our visit this week to the city of Lyon all the more important, one of the world's great food capitals, as this week's guest will tell us. One of the great late-life rugby resurgence stories is that of Deon Fourie, who you might think is South African, but you would be wrong, because technically, Monsieur Fourie, there's a good deal of French to you as well.
Oui, je peux parler le français un peu, heureusement, or parfois malheureusement. Yeah, no, it's good to be back. Had a good life in France, but more happy to be back in South Africa.
Tell me a bit about life in France. We see you playing rugby on the field, but so much of it is away from the field. What was it about France that really got to you?
I think the accessibility of going through the whole country, just jumping on a TGV, one of those bullet trains, and then in 2 hours from Lyon, you're in Paris, or in 2 hours you're down in the south of France. So just the accessibility and the different environments you can go to in less time.
And you got to see it all from that base of Lyon. Yes, Lyon's known for its rugby and for its football, but for me it's also known for food. Is the food in Lyon as good as everyone says?
No, definitely. It's renowned for the gastronomical city of the world. We've been around in restaurants and a few Michelin-star restaurants around there. There's a couple of them, or quite a lot of them in Lyon. And yeah, especially the food was outstanding.
So if I had come to visit you while you were there and we were going out for dinner, what would we have been eating?
For start, yeah, if you eat, they eat for a long time. So if you go to a French guy's house, you eat at least 5 hours, because it's very small plates, but it's just keep on coming. Little French lady in the kitchen, you don't see her a lot, you just see her when she comes out with plates of food. So it will be nice, but mostly they love their pork. They eat everything from the tail to the nose, so mostly it will be pork, yeah.
And that was part of the life you led. The other part was, of course, the rugby. What was the big difference for you between rugby in South Africa and rugby in France?
I think in France, when I arrived there, it was a bit slower than I was used to. I played Super Rugby for a few years in Cape Town before I went there, so the game was a bit slow, but it was definitely harder. You had quality players where you played against. A lot of the top 14 teams had star players in their team, so you knew your opposition is quality players, but and big as well. Some of those Georgians you play against are monstrous. You sometimes scared they're gonna swallow you up in your ruck or sometimes. So I think that difference changed a bit in the speed, but definitely it was a much harder impact, yeah.
There also seems to be extraordinary atmosphere. The ground seems to be a lot closer to the fields, not as big in numbers as you might have at, say, the DHL Stadium in a final, but those fans who are there really seem to get stuck into the game.
Yeah, I think max, the capacity probably is 15,000, and they fill that every time. And like you said, most of that 15,000 stand next to the field behind the barriers. And there's always a band with the drums and flutes and all that stuff. So the sound it sounds more than like 40,000 people than 50,000 people. But it's a great vibe. They love their rugby and they're very passionate about it as well.
And we see that with the fans week in and week out. What was it like for you as a player when you played for the very first time, suddenly experiencing a French rugby crowd?
Yeah, no, it was. If I think back, my first game we played against Toulouse in Lyon, and Joe Tokori stood next to me before he ran on, and it was this big guy, and I just thought to myself, Deon, what did you bring yourself into coming to South Africa and playing against these oaks? But when you run out there, like I said, they're passionate and they shout and they give banter as well, so like some of the people here in South Africa as well. But mostly I didn't understand the banter in the beginning, but I loved my time there.
Now, amongst those fans in the crowd were a few South Africans, because there are a couple of little Fouries who were born in France.
Yeah, both my kids were born there. My son was born in Lyon and my daughter in Grenoble. So yeah, they've got a bit of French blood in them, but I'm trying to learn them more Afrikaans than French at the moment.
And being a parent, bringing your kids up for a few years in France, what was that experience like?
No, it was good. My boy, before we came back, he was in school there, like preschool. He started counting to 10 in French, and then then COVID happened. Then everyone was locked in the house, and then after that we decided we need to come back and get around friends and family. And I don't think he can count to 10 anymore in French.
So very happily back in South Africa, but with extraordinary memories of France. Is there a particular memory or occasion that would sum up what that time in France meant to you?
Yeah, I think we made good friends with New Zealand and Australian players there, and we travelled a lot with them. Like I said, we can jump on a TGV. We went to the wine country down in Avignon, Shafton, the pub is great wine, and up in Paris. We went to Paris a lot. I think you can't get enough of Paris. If you see the museums and all the old buildings and Eiffel Tower, you keep mesmerizing when you see the Eiffel Tower and the lights go up at night. It's something to see every time you see it. It's extraordinary.
And if we dropped you back into France today, would you be okay with the language?
Yeah, I can still help myself. I can still order a few beers and a plate of food. So that's all that matters.
Well, that's all the important stuff. You know him as Deon Fourie, but for armies of rugby fans in France, he's Monsieur Deon de l'Afrique du Sud.